So I'm sure by now you've heard the name Luigi Mangione. And if you haven't, then honestly, you might have been living under a rock. And if you are the Patrick Star of society, let me catch you up. Luigi Mangione is not the Luigi from Mario. He is a 26-year-old who was arrested in December of 2024 after the killing of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Police claim it was a targeted shooting, planned with a 3D printed gun and a silencer he made himself. And, this is the part that got the internet buzzing, Monopoly money left behind, like some kind of calling card. Mangione fled and was caught at a McDonald's in my hometown of Altoona, Pennsylvania. He's now facing murder charges, with some wanting him to face the death penalty. I'm not gonna lie, the facts are grim. Yet what happened next was stranger. Older generations like the Boomers and Gen X almost universally looked at Mangione as an evil villain. However, Gen Z and millennials flooded TikTok and Twitter with memes, fan cams, and slogans like Free Luigi, casting him as an anti-hero, a vigilante, a modern-day Robin Hood. Sometimes ironically, but most of the time with absolute sincerity. This generational divide has less to do with the crime itself and more to do with values, storytelling styles, and how each generation processes chaos. For older generations, the reaction was automatic, instinctive. A man was killed in cold blood. He had a wife, children, colleagues, a well-respected career, and his life was taken from him too soon. What Luigi did was wrong and could not be justified. Many of the Boomers and Gen Xers were horrified to see any positive framing of Luigi. They emphasized the rule of law, due process, and the moral line against vigilante violence. Some even called Mangione a terrorist, and governors and officials condemned the glorification. They also noted how Mangione's good looks and privileged background seemed to soften his public image, something they found even more disturbing. To them, turning him into a folk hero looked like a sign of moral decay. Gen Z and millennials, though, grew up in the trenches of broken systems, especially the American healthcare system. Insurance denials, medical debt, and GoFundMe pleas for surgeries are normal sights for their feeds. So when a health insurance CEO was assassinated in cold blood, many young people framed it as a symbolic resistance against greed. The Monopoly money detail almost felt too on the nose. In a generation raised on dystopian fiction and complex anti-heroes, Mangione slotted easily into the role of vigilante. They made memes comparing him to Batman, the Joker, Robin Hood, V from V for Vendetta. They laughed, thirsted, and even used him as a vehicle to express rage at the system. Polling revealed just how wide this gap was. A large share of young respondents described the killing as acceptable or justified, while almost no older respondents did. For young people, Mangione represented disruption in a world where polite advocacy feels powerless. For older people, he represented dangerous chaos in a world that already feels unstable. Meme culture accelerated the divide. For Gen Z, making casual dark jokes is a coping mechanism. They remix tragedies into content almost instantly. It is both catharsis and protest. For older viewers, it looks like nihilism. They take the memes literally and see them as a celebration of violence. Both sides clearly misunderstand each other. The young mistake older silence for complicity with the system. The old mistake ironic memes for sincere praise of a killer. There is also a long tradition of romanticizing outlaws during times of stress. Depression-era Americans sometimes treated bank robbers like folk heroes because they struck against hated institutions. The internet simply turbocharged that process. Instead of ballads or dime novels, Mangione's legend spread through TikTok edits in ironic merch. Beneath the noise, their values are not so different. Almost everyone agrees the healthcare system is completely broken. The split is about means. Older generations cling to stability, fearing that cheering vigilantes corrodes society. Younger generations are frustrated with inaction, and they sometimes frame extreme disruption as a kind of justice. Both have a point. So is Luigi Mangione a hero or a villain? Legally, he is a defendant awaiting trial. Culturally, he became a mirror. To some, he embodies moral collapse. to others a cry against systematic cruelty. What the divide really shows is not who we cheer, but what stories we use to make sense of a world that feels unfair. For one generation, the moral is simple: violence is wrong. For another, the moral is messy. Maybe violence is wrong, but so is endless denial of care. If there's any takeaway worth holding on to, it's this. The villain of the story is not a single man to idolize or condemn. The villain is a system that leaves people so desperate that murder can look like justice to some and moral collapse to others. If we can agree on that, maybe the next story will not need a vigilante at all. This is part of my series of Generations Apart, where I bridge the gap between boomers and zoomers. If you enjoyed the content so far, make sure to follow for more.